Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jeremy Schumacher. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the Jer in Wellness with Jer. Thanks for checking out my channel today. Today, I want to talk about New Year's resolutions. That's not true. We're in January probably, so you've hopefully made your resolution. We're going to talk about how to make changes that last. And so we're using resolutions as kind of a jumping off point, but we're really going to talk about lasting change. So a lot of things that come up with New Year's resolutions is people don't stick with them. So a lot of people will make New Year's resolutions for any number of reasons, and they won't follow through with it. The research around New Year's resolutions, I think, is fascinating. So I mentioned it in my blog post, which is why I happen to know it off the top of my head. But 43% of New Year people have let go or failed in their New Year's resolution by the end of January, and 90% of people have failed or let go of their New Year's resolution by the time that by the end of March. So first 3 full months of the year, and 90% of people have not stuck with their resolution. So we're going to talk about why so many resolutions fail, and I think that will take care of most of the 43% in January. And then we're going to talk about how to have lasting change, which is a harder thing to do. And so kind of hopefully take care of those things that are falling off by the end of March. And hopefully that way, whatever your life goals are and the changes that you're making in your life, you can stick to a little bit better. So how to make changes that will stick is what we want to talk about today. So first big thing, I think with a concept like New Year's resolutions, on the one hand, I hate them because people do them poorly and don't stick with them. But I'm in the business of change. So I love change. Therapy is about changing, being a happier, healthier version of yourself. I think change is always possible. And so I'm very interested in helping people make changes that are better for them. And so I don't like the idea of resolutions because I think they're done poorly, but I love the idea of resolutions in the sense of yeah, absolutely. If it takes an arbitrary day on an arbitrary way that we track the time of the year and the dates, great, whatever you need to get started. You don't need to wait till January 1st to start a resolution. If you're watching this video and it's June, hey, today's the day, let's do it. So there is no arbitrary date. There's nothing special about New Year's. I think it's just kind of a time for people to reflect. And it's just a weird way we do the calendar. So it's kind of arbitrary in and of itself, which just highlights the arbitrary nature of deciding to make a change. If you're ready to make a change, make it. Doesn't matter if it's, June 1st or January 1st or a random Tuesday. Let's do it. So I think the first thing that people really struggle with is a lot of the changes that they're making are huge and they're expansive and they're not setting realistic goals around it. And so they're getting discouraged by not seeing results straight away. So things like losing weight, working out more, changing your diet, those things are all things that take a lot of time. Those are the examples. I wrote about this. Shout out to my blog. I don't know if I can shout out my own stuff. It seems a little eye roll inducing. wellnesswithjared.com/blog. I wrote about those examples in my blog because I think they're very popular. January is the biggest month of the year for gym memberships. So a lot of people are trying to do those things. Those are lifestyle changes. Those are not temporary changes. So having expectations that reflect the lifestyle nature of it are going to be more helpful than just being I watched Biggest Loser and binge watched it, and then I binge ate, and now I'm going to not do either of those things and work out a bunch. And okay, don't watch The Biggest Loser, and don't expect that to be the realistic expectation around losing weight. A healthy goal for losing weight is 1 to 2 pounds per week. And 2 pounds is a maximum. So there is no super healthy way to cut weight loss. Those shows existed under medical supervision, and even with that medical supervision, there were still bad things that happened to those people, and a lot of those people put weight back on. So again, that was a TV show and it was made for ratings. It's not real. So realistic weight loss, and I don't even like to talk about weight loss a ton. I like to talk about body composition. I like to talk about healthy body type, healthy weight for your body. It shouldn't be reflected by the number on a scale. So that's not an arbitrary thing. That's an objective thing that we can track. So a lot of people use that, but there is no number on a scale that means you're healthy. It can be the number you want, and you can still be quite unhealthy, even dangerously unhealthy, any number on the scale. And so we want to move kind of past that scale thinking and when we think about healthy lifestyle. Making changes that are lifestyle based are helpful. That's one of my tips. It's getting muddled here. My tips interact with each other, so it's hard to kind of talk one each. But like first, we need realistic expectations. If you're losing weight or you're trying to do exercise, it's going to take time. Muscle growth takes about 8 weeks to become visible. So if you're trying to bulk up for the new year, like you're looking at 2 months of working out before you see results. If you're trying to lose weight, you can lose maybe 8 pounds a month ish in a pretty aggressive, like a caloric deficit of 500 calories to 1,000 calories per week is going to get you there. But like that's a big caloric deficit. So thinking through like what's realistic for you and how long is it going to take you to see those results, being healthy is totally worth it. But if your reward is 2 months off, you're not going to stick with it. Especially working out those first 2 weeks, you're going to have muscle soreness, you're going to be tired, you're not getting the benefits right away. I do think that people who start working out should see some benefits, but not like visible benefits. You're not going to look cut all of a sudden. You're not going to be jacked. You're not going to be swole, whatever other cringy term gym people like to use for looking good. You're not going to see it, but you will feel better. I think exercising in about those first 2 weeks, you're going to have that muscle soreness, and then your body kind of gets used to it and starts to crave the exercising. Your body might not crave exercising, but your body wants to move. Your body was designed for movement, and so when you're giving it the movement it wants, it's going to feel good. Your energy levels start to, not everybody experiences this, but they can start to balance out after working out for 2 weeks, and your sleep can improve with after 2 weeks of working out. So like there's a lot that I think can happen after 2 weeks, but for sure those first 2 weeks working out are miserable. Like you're sore and you're tired and you're in pain and you feel out of shape and old and blah blah blah. Like it's not fun. I'm in shape and I like working out, and like there's still workouts that I dislike. Like there's still things where I'm like, man, I'm not where I want to be, or like this is a struggle, or like I'm never gonna go for a run. Feels terrible, hurts my shins. I don't like that. I'll do cardio a different way, but like I'm not going to do that. So rewarding yourself during the process for those long-term goals. This is a long build to get to tip 1. Reward yourself, right? If you're not going to see results for 8 weeks or more in some of these goals, or you're not going to have the end goal, and again, we'll talk about how to do goals in a better way than that, but like if your end goal is to be a certain weight or to be able to bench press a certain amount of pounds, like we need to reward the build up to that. It's a journey, not an event. It's a process, not an event. We need to break down our goal into little steps, and then we need to reward those steps because our brain motivation feeds on feeling successful. And so if the only goal we have is I want to look like a supermodel that is totally unrealistic and photoshopped, well, like we're never going to be happy. But if our goal is I want to bench press this many pounds, and like we're not there yet, we don't get to experience that little blissful euphoria of meeting that goal for a while. And we're supposed to what, go to the gym a couple times a week while we're miserable? Like no, that's why people don't stick with it. And so we need to reward ourselves in the process. So if your goal is to exercise more, then we break down that goal into being like, I'm going to go to the gym 4 days a week, or 5 days a week, or 6 days a week. That's maximum because you need a rest day. So it becomes like we reward those goals, and then like, little rewards for like, I went to the gym today, so I'm going to do this, or I'm going to build up to this reward. So we reward the process as opposed to just having a reward being the end result. And like being fit, being healthy is a reward in and of itself. I get that. But for most of us, that's not rewarding enough for our brains to deal with pain and unpleasantness. Like we don't need to if we don't have to. A lot of people can like ride fast food and no activity level into their 50s or 60s before they start seeing problems. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying, like, if our brain has the choice of like hard work and no results or McDonald's, like a lot of our brains are going to pick McDonald's. It's just how we're wired. And so I think rewarding our behavior as we're going is helpful. So that's how we get through kind of like that first month burnout. Within that goal, which is reward the process, smaller rewards earlier in the process, Within that process, we need to have realistic expectations. So I talked about this a little bit already, but like I'm just circling back to highlight that, like, if your goal is to lose weight and you're like checking your weight every day, you're going to feel defeated because you're not going to lose weight every day. Some days you're going to gain weight because you drank a lot of water, which like is healthy and good for you. You're going to start working out, you're building muscle weighs more than fat, so you're cutting fat but you're building muscle. Like, you might not see those results right away. So a lot of this stuff is like learning and having the education that you need, educating yourself to know like what is realistic expectation for this type of thing. I think there's plenty of bad information out on the internet. I think there's plenty of bad like influencers and people who use Photoshop and a bunch of like gym bros who do roids and like pass it off as natural muscle growth. So like, educate yourself. I think there's plenty of good information if you just do a quick Google search on a lot of this stuff around like what's realistic expectation for weight loss, how long will it take me to build muscle. Like, there is information out there, and like the internet can be a terrible place when people are doing it to sell money, but like Google's just crawling, research and articles and stuff. So obviously, like when I'm looking something up, I prefer peer-reviewed literature. That's a good place to start. It means like at least 2 professionals have signed off on this thing being okay. Doesn't mean it's always right, because bad things can still pass peer review. Peer review is basically saying like, are there any like inherent flaws in the way that this study was conducted? But again, a lot of that stuff's like pretty accessible and out there. Really good high-level peer-reviewed stuff is usually behind a paywall, which is frustrating. It shouldn't be that way, but that's a topic for another day. So like, again, get educated and like build realistic expectations. If you're not sure on like how to get educated, find an expert in the topic and like seriously email them. Like, just reach out or like hire a personal trainer or talk to a nutritionist. A lot of these people will, like, I'm a nerd about mental health. I want to talk about mental health with people. If people want to pay for my services, like, that's ideal. That's better for me because this is what I do for a job. But like, there are people who want to talk about their stuff. There are researchers who want to talk about their stuff. But yeah, find someone who knows about it and like set some realistic expectations. See if you can do a 20-minute phone call with someone and set realistic expectations. Don't use a professional's time for free. I talked myself into a weird corner here. I don't know how I got here. So, realistic expectations. I think talk to your support system, talk to people who are in the know, talk to experts in the field. Make sure you're building a realistic expectation. Sometimes people in your friend or family group won't have good expectations or won't be realistic with it, but sometimes those people are like the people who give us that kick in the pants or be like, you're being ridiculous. So it kind of, I'm giving this advice, but it's very generic, and like, you obviously have to know how good your support system is and what they're good at. But make sure you're building a realistic expectation around these type of things. That will help you plan out how to do your rewards and like when you should start seeing results, so you don't get burnt out and you don't get discouraged right away. If you're doing a big expansive change, if it is a lifestyle change, we need to be realistic about that. And I think lifestyle changes are healthier. I think, right? Like when I'm doing couples therapy with people, I'm not just teaching them. I am, but I'm looking at it more expansively. Like, I'm trying to teach a couple how to have a healthy relationship. I can give them skills to argue less because I think that leads to a healthy relationship. But that's not the only part of it. It's not just like the tool. It's not just the technique. So I'm going to nerd out for a second here. If you're like, ugh, he goes on these nerdy rants, I don't want to keep listening to him. Fast forward a little bit. But in the world of therapy, we have different ways that we talk about change. So a lot of therapists who do just individual therapy are doing first order change, which is behavior change. I want to quit smoking. That's behavior change. That's what we refer to in the nerdy therapy world as first order change. Second order change is getting a system of people to change. So a couple coming to therapy to argue less and have a healthier relationship. A couple who are both trying to quit smoking together. Second order change is groups of people or systems of people changing. And so like, that's why we have group support system. Change is both easier and longer lasting when multiple people do it. A family learns to stop scapegoating a child. A family learns how to do consequences and rewards properly. A couple learns how to communicate in a healthier way. group of professional athletes learn how to practice together in a healthy way and build communication and trust and blah, blah, blah. Like all these things, these relational things, relational change is second order change. It's more lasting, more powerful, more complicated to get there. Third order change is kind of like a transcendent, spiritual or existential change. And that's really awesome. Way more rare. It's the work that I get super stoked about, but I make my bread and butter in that second order change with systems change as a couples therapist. But existential change is really cool. I mean, that transitional change is really powerful in someone's life. So it's always like fascinating and fun work. It's not always fun work. It ends up being fun at the end of it because it's this really cool transformation. But we have third order change, and so like that's existential. So we're trying to like tap into that a little bit without forcing it. We don't need to like make an existential change about eating healthier, and yet something like going on a diet is temporary and time constrained, and most of those things fail because they're temporary. So people lose weight and then they put weight back on because they're not making a lifestyle change, they're making a temporary change. And so that lifestyle change is like, I want to be a healthy person, therefore I'm going to change how I eat, I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to do these different things. One of the things that I don't do New Year's resolutions because I don't think they work, and I'm really bad at lying to myself about the arbitrary nature of January 1st having any special meaning. So I tend not to do this, so it's not a self-defeating exercise for me. But lifestyle changes, I think, are more important than just temporary changes. And so if there's a way that you can build it into like a lifestyle change, if you can make it a bigger thing, that's really great. I think that's why like 30-day sugar-free challenges or like cleanses or like weight loss challenges are popular, because that's tapping into the first order change, which is the behavior change, the second order change, which is a system or a group of people changing. And then for the people who like get something out of it and stick with it and don't just put that weight back on, it becomes a lifestyle change for them, although not everybody stays there. So I think if you can get to a point where you make it a lifestyle change, that is really helpful. Okay, and then my other tip is to make it a little bit of like a personality change. So this one's hard to talk about. Usually I have like an example from a client that I'm working with to make it make sense, and I can kind of build my metaphor from there. So I'm just kind of going to give some generic examples. But if you know someone who wanted to work out more and they started doing CrossFit and then they kept doing CrossFit, they became really obnoxious about doing CrossFit. Like they're a CrossFit person now. People who do marathons and put like bumper stickers on their cars, like we don't care. But they care because they got a bumper sticker and they made it a part of their personality. If you can make a change that becomes part of your personality, that is something that we stick with a lot more. And the way that I kind of think about it is like, if this is a thing, you start a new job or you go on a retreat and you have to introduce yourself, like, is this a thing you can introduce yourself with? So a couple of the lifestyle changes I've made recently, as after we had our second kid, I was a little overweight. I was just kind of unhealthy. I was in a high stress job. I wasn't in a high stress job. I loved my job. I was in a toxic work environment. Those are different things. The end result was a high stress job. But I was in a toxic work environment. I was overweight. I was just carrying too much weight. I didn't have a healthy workout routine. So some of those things that I wanted to change, like I switched to barefoot shoes. Like that's a weird, interesting fact for me. Not a ton of people wear barefoot shoes. So like, wow, is it part of my personality? I don't think so. But like, could I have made that change? Is that a thing that like can be introduced as an interesting fact about me? Yeah. One of the other things I did was intermittent fasting. Like again, it's not like I go up to people and I'm like, hey, hi, I'm Jer. Nice to meet you. I'm an intermittent faster. Like it doesn't come up often, except I'm in like the health and wellness business, I guess. So, not I guess. I was just saying I just threw in the wellness thing for branding reasons for my name of my business. But those are things that relate to like enough about what I do. I talk about healthy eating and healthy exercise with people enough where it comes up in my line of work. I don't introduce myself that way, but like those are interesting things. Those are things that have become part of what I do and on a regular enough basis that it's part of my personality. It's not inherently like a character trait, but it's like a thing. It's a thing that I do. It's a thing that like I do often enough that I relate to it, and so I can identify with it. So I like to use CrossFit as like my go-to stereotype metaphor for it, because there aren't people who like do CrossFit and don't talk about it. Another example, and both these are pejorative, and like I'm not throwing shade at either of these groups, but like are people who are vegan or vegetarian. Um, so like yeah, this is part of their personality. Like it comes up often enough where they like kind of have to own it, and it's not a bad thing. I throw a lot of shade at CrossFit because most of the athletic trainers that I know don't like CrossFit because it's quantity over quality. I don't do CrossFit, so like I'm not an educated person on this topic. I'm parroting other people's talking points. But yeah, it seems to increase, it potentially increases the risk of injury if you're not doing things correctly. So, a word to the wise, CrossFit can be great for people who love it. It works really well for some people. Always make sure you're doing your exercises correctly. Don't rush through it. Do it correctly. There, I think that takes care of all the issues with CrossFit. We fixed it. But no, so I like CrossFit because as a high level coach, I've worked with a lot of athletic trainers, and a lot of athletic trainers have strong opinions about CrossFit. And people who do CrossFit also have strong opinions about CrossFit. So it's kind of just a perfect example. But yeah, like vegan or vegetarian, people who are gluten-free. People who are gluten-free, I don't think it's a personality thing so much as like they can't eat gluten, and so they have to tell you. Where vegetarian or vegan is more of a choice. So they'll tell you. But it becomes like a personality thing. It becomes something they identify with. And so if you're doing behavior change, and that this taps into, again, that little bit of third order change, that existential change, if we can identify with it, if we can make it a change that like becomes part of us, we're much more likely to stick with it. So, some of the other examples besides like health and wellness might be like, you want to be more gracious person. You want to practice gratitude more often, right? So we can do behavior change. 3 daily affirmations, positive affirmations, 3 times a day, 21 days, right? 7 days a week, three times a day, 21 things, 21 days. We're hacking a bunch of like meta analyses on behavior change. That's what we need to create new habits. There, we did it. But if we can tie it into like, oh, well, I'm going to start doing yoga, and I'm going to go to a class, second order change, right? I'm going to a class. And part of that is like practicing gratitude, and like we're doing yoga, and we like have gratitude for ourselves when we get there. We have gratitude for ourselves at the end of the yoga practice. And so like I'm practicing gratitude and forcing myself to practice it. We're getting a little bit of second order change. Third order change is going to be like changing again, like kind of that existential meaning, or like, hey, like my time is limited here, and so I need to be like a happier, healthier person. I'm going to watch less news, and I'm going to engage with more people, and I'm going to try and practice gratitude in these ways, but also like go out of my way to be a gracious person with other people, because that now has meaning to me, and that is a meaningful thing. So like, again, we're trying to tap into first order change, behavior change. Second order change is a group or a system changing, and then third order change is existential, or a way to kind of identify with it. And being careful with that identity, because I think we can say things about ourselves and then we kind of get locked into it just because we said it. So like I've always, not always, for much of my life, I've identified as a cynical optimist. And so I'm optimistic that change is possible, but I'm skeptical that it'll happen. And like, I don't know, I think that's still probably true, but like I was way more cynical younger in my life, and I'm very much more cynical about certain things in my life now. But like, be aware of that stuff. When we put words around something, it changes our intention around it. And so it kind of crystallizes an abstract thought. Some other things with healthy change, I think, is like breaking it down into little steps. This I think falls under have realistic expectations and reward the process. But like, you need steps that you can take. You need mile markers of progress instead of just the finish line. If our goals are all end result based, we're not going to feel rewarded very often. And one of my many mantras is motivation feeds on success. So we need to make our brain feel successful. We need to be crossing something off the list regularly. Our brain likes that. It makes it feel happy. And not only does it make it feel happy, it makes it feel motivated to keep going. So we want to get some stuff right. I talk about like stacking wins early in the process when we're doing behavior change. So like we want to set it up so we're winning. We want to celebrate those wins. We need to have small steps. So the way that I kind of do like goal setting and planning for people is monthly goal, weekly goal, and then daily goal. And so like depending on where we're at in the process, we might be rewarding our daily goals and meeting those daily goals, but that's helpful to get the ball rolling. We might shift to like a weekly goal, weekly reward for a goal, and then like a monthly reward for a goal. But those rewards are meaningful, and like so making a thing that maybe isn't super enjoyable where we're at in the process more enjoyable by giving ourselves a reward is really going to be helpful to making that behavior change stay But yes, we want to break it down into like actionable items. So we want to like, I'm going to work out more. Okay, great. Like, how? What workout routine are you going to do? Are you doing CrossFit? Are you going to the YMCA? Are you buying free weights? Do you have a gym where you work? Like, what are you doing? I need workout clothes. Like, great. Like, let's get workout clothes. I need to set aside time for working out. Like, great. Let's commit to a time and figure out how it's going to structure in our schedule. So like breaking all those things down, those are all steps that we need to do to work out more, and we need to celebrate some of those things as we like get started in the process. We can't celebrate them too much because then our brain cheats and feels rewarded for doing not enough work. So we got to like work that dopamine, that reward system in our brain properly. Shout out to all my neurodivergent folks who don't have that reward system working properly anyway. We really have to figure out how it works because it doesn't work on its own for us. Another thing I talk about a lot is like body doubling. This is for my neurodivergent folks specifically, but like doing something with other people is going to be helpful. So also ties into a second order change, but it's really helpful for people who are neurodivergent to body doubling, do an unhelpful task with other people. So if you got homework to do and you can't get it done on time, like sit across the table from somebody else. We would have study halls that were mandatory for our student athletes that worked really well. So structuring that time and having other people hold you accountable for it. You can do this with like a group type thing, right? So it doesn't need to be like someone sitting down and doing something with you that's unpleasant. It can just be like, hey, like I'm going to FaceTime you while I fold laundry. All right, cool. I'm going to FaceTime you while I do dishes and we're going to do our chores together. Like, great. So that can be really helpful in making changes. That can also kind of like work as an accountability thing. So I think that's really great. I think Zoom, for a lot of people in the profession that I'm in, like we have these Zoom, I don't do them because I'm antisocial, but there are Zoom groups that do like paperwork together or whatever. So like having that accountability, having that knowledge of somebody else doing something, that social pressure to do it yourself, can be really helpful. So I think that can be good. That's a balancing act, right? You don't want to put too much pressure. You don't want to be doing it just for other people because then it's not really for you anymore. So I think breaking it down into small chunks, and having realistic goals, mile markers for progress. We want to have those things. Having a group and having accountability built in can be really helpful. Those are great tips for sticking with it. And then I think like being open to adjustments. So working really hard to let go of that all or nothing thinking. Like I need to look like this YouTuber that I like, or I need to look like this celebrity. Like that's a terrible goal. Like make it for yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people. The only person you can compare yourself to is you. It's like you in the past, you 2 months ago, you 2 years ago, you 2 weeks from now. You can compare yourself to that. You can't compare yourself to other people. So letting go of some of those like ridiculous over the top goals, but then like don't compare yourself to other people. I lost my point here by getting ahead of myself. Don't compare yourself to other people. You can only compare yourself to yourself. I'm going to watch this video back after it's recorded and be irritated that I didn't come back to the thing I talked myself out of. It's lost. It's gone. Part of ADHD. It'll come back when I watch the video and I'll be irritated. And then I'll comment on my own video and feel like a weirdo for commenting on my own video. So hopefully these are some helpful tips. I'm looking at my run time. I'm already past. My phone cuts all my videos at 26 minutes, I found out. I don't know why. It's like 26 minutes and some change. So I'm past that. So I'm already in the second part of my video. My video person already has to do a bunch of extra work, so might as well just keep rambling on. I'm just talking to try and build time to remember that thing that I forgot, but it is not coming back to me. Oh, let go of all or nothing thinking. See, if I stuck with it long enough, it was going to come back. It doesn't always work that way. All or nothing thinking. So be open to reevaluating. So like you might make great progress in 2 or 3 months, and then like your motivation might start to wane because you're not feeling particularly successful. And like you're being successful. You did it. You did whatever you needed to. But now we need to like readjust our goals and we need to reevaluate where we're at. Or maybe like your goals were super unattainable and unrealistic. That's where I got off track before. And so they were set up from failure, not because you're a failure, but because your goal was unrealistic. And so we get into the process and then we need to reevaluate a little bit. So I think being open to that. It's not all or nothing. It's not like January 1st comes around and so like, oh shucks, it's January 17th and you're not meeting your goals. So let's wait till next year, January. Like just reevaluate and readjust. Sometimes it's like something's not working. Maybe it's an issue of not knowing how something works. So like you get into working out and you lose some weight, and then you're getting like more and more fit, and then like you're a hard gainer, and like you don't know what that term means because nobody ever told you that before because you've never been fit enough for it before. And like, yeah, that's a thing. And so like learning about like diet and nutrition and supplementation, and like I'm not crazy about all that, some of that stuff, but like, you know, it could be an issue of education. You don't know what you don't know. And so when you get into something and you're making changes, you're going to learn more. But that's where like tapping into an education system and talking with experts is really helpful. But reevaluate, right? We're not static. Most of the goals that we set, even if we're really good with setting accurate goals and realistic goals, and we make them lifestyle changes instead of temporary changes, these things are hard to stick with. It is almost never like starting point, end point, linear journey. And so these are things that we need to reevaluate and we need to update. Sometimes we need to create new goals that are harder so our brain can still feel motivated. Sometimes we need to like set more realistic goals. So we need to adjust it, or maybe we need to spread out the timeline. A lot of times people give me pushback in therapy about like, oh, so I'm just supposed to lower my expectations. And I don't necessarily agree with lowering our expectations. I think oftentimes our expectations are inaccurate in the timeline that we attach to it. So it's not that you need to lower your expectations. It might just be that you need to stretch out your timeline. So I think, again, it's just a process of reevaluating. And I think with goal setting and behavior change and resolutions and all of this stuff, like reevaluating and readjusting, tinkering with our process needs to be a part of it, as opposed to just thinking it's going to be a start. It's a linear journey. Our brain loves stories. It loves to have a start, a middle, and an end. It loves building to a climax and having resolution. Like, that's not, unfortunately, how life works. We love narrative and we love story, but that's not real life. And so adjusting these things and reevaluating these things, they don't always have a start, a middle, and an end. It's not always a linear journey. And so being able to reevaluate these things, readjust these things, even when they're healthy changes and they're lifestyle changes and you followed every tip I gave you, you're still going to have to reevaluate and update some of these things. So be open to that and have a plan for how you're going to do that. All right, cool. Questions, concerns, drop down in the comments and leave them there. I'll get up to them and respond. Peace out, everybody. Happy resolutions.